All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Across the Pond podcast with Daniel Dipper and yours truly. Today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about quick-fire topics that are relevant in both Europe and in the Americas. So we're going to try and limit each topic to about 10 minutes, depending on how much we argue, depending on what we're talking about. But our first topic is going to be on protests. So recently, there's been quite a lot of protests between activists and environmental and different abortion laws, things like that. And it's been hot topics across the globe, especially in Asia as well, with the Hong Kong protests. And we're going to try and cover as much as we can within a short period of time. So, beginning with in the US, Daniel, if you want to start off your protest talk.
All right. So, as far as anybody's really concerned, the biggest protests that are going on, I mean, not along with the environmentalists, it's not as big as an uproar as it is over there in Europe where you are and everything. But the biggest protest is going to be guns. You're going to have your women's rights activists, which once we jump into that side, it's going to be all hell for me because I have really strong opinions on that side. And Black Lives Matter. It's kind of a dying protest, but at the same time, it's still a really big uproar with it.
Yeah, it's still very important in a lot of communities, especially with police brutality, things like that still going on. A lot of racism still is included in the United States politics. It's in the news quite a lot, still on different channels. So that is still relevant to our conversations today.
Definitely.
Right. So we'll start off with Europe, and UK in particular, and in London. So recently, Britain has seen a lot of turmoil, especially in its politics with Brexit, things like that, and we have our general election coming up. And a lot of people have seen this as an opportunity to kind of tackle certain topics that they feel very passionately about. So we have Extinction Rebellion. Now, we've all seen the UN's conference on environmental issues with Greta Thunberg, things like that, and inspirational speakers, including David Attenborough, supporting her. The Extinction Rebellion have taken this to another level, so they've begun to block important roads and trains, things like that, causing massive disruption to transport in London. It has pissed a lot of people off, including the mayor. So, from what we've seen in these protests, they've blocked Piccadilly Circus and they've sat in the middle and they've blockaded everything off and they've been harassed by loads of different groups of people. And I believe some of them might still support their environmental views, but they are quite extreme. And one of them was also, I saw a video on Facebook, and obviously it's not the most reliable source, but it was on the news as well. And it was this guy had stood on top of a tube train and was physically dragged off by I wouldn't say anti-environmental protesters, but people who were just trying to get on their way with their journey, a little bit pissed that this guy was fucking jumping on top of the train, and they dragged him off and beat him up, which is obviously wrong. But I want to get your views on this. Obviously, Americans' environmental side is a little bit different. You
All
guys
right.
have reintroduced coal and things like that into your kind of infrastructure. So here it's a little bit different. We're more green, especially in Scotland. We're aiming for 100% renewable. But in America, what is your views on things like this taking place in the UK?
All right. So, what you just said about the guy that was trying to get along on his merry little way and he got
Hmm.
dragged off, I'm sorry. I don't know if I caught it the right way. Did you say the protesters beat him up or the anti
It was
protesters?
like it wasn't really an anti. This guy was part of Extinction Rebellion. Okay, he was like in his suit and he was really passionate about it. So he jumped on top of the train, right? And obviously regular passengers of the train, very angry, stopped at the station.
Because,
People
yeah,
need to be
because the train couldn't take off
exactly.
anymore.
So these people
All
are
right.
very
So,
angry.
All right, so for that, it's going to be the same standpoint. So if you look at the Black Lives Matter, when that was a really big protest here in America, you had these groups of people block off major roadways. So that goes to the same effect. So like that's going to be stopping your free way of roaming your country. So I
Hmm.
believe that anybody that really okay, so let me try to phrase this to where it doesn't make me sound like a dick. But either way, it's going to. So if you so put me an example and you an example. If
Okay.
it's only me and you stand in front of my car and just say it's a group of yous. So say it's a group of Greg Williamsons just in my
Damn,
way
that's
and won't let me
terrifying.
go to my work. Oh, yeah, it is very. Just say you are in my way and you won't let me go to my job.
Yeah.
At this point, I have 5 minutes to go 3 miles to work.
Hmm.
And the light's green, but there's a blockade. So at this point, I'm going to be very, very pissed off
Hmm.
because I have to go to work.
Yep.
you are deliberately blocking my way of roaming my country freely. So at that point, I'm gonna come up to you and tell you to get the fuck out of my way. And then if you proceed to not do it, or if you so in America, we look for a way to beat the shit out of people when they're being idiots.
Yeah.
So if you're blocking our way, we're gonna wait for you just to give a little shove or something to get us out of your face, because we're gonna get all in your face. And I would definitely. I'm gonna get in your face and wait for you to push me or something, and I'm gonna beat the dog shit out of you.
Now,
I mean,
see, with that, now obviously it's in the Constitution and it's in the Human Rights Act. Now, people have the right to protest, and I could see
yes,
what you mean by it's frustrating. However, when people do it incorrectly, because you have the responsibility alongside your rights. You have the right to protest, but you have the right to do it responsibly in controlled
right.
situations, non-violent, preferably. These
You
guys
you can't
don't
just
give a
go
shit.
block off a fucking roadway or a
Yeah,
train.
and the police
It's
expending police resources, things like that. And if you do it organized, like you're letting the government know this thing's happening, and you're not just causing massive disruption where they can change roadways to allow people to get around London, which is obviously one of the densely most populated city in the UK, has a bigger population than Scotland as a country. So with something like that happening, it causes massive issues. And you were the same in America. Your freedom of travel to across your country, whatever. And I get where you're coming from with that. So that's protest here in particular. We've had things in France as well with the Yellow Jacket movement, and we have had a lot of right wing and left wing clashes, especially in Eastern countries, with things like Hungary. And in Spain recently, there has been an election where the third largest party is now a far right extremist group, and that has caused a lot of fear. Especially, we don't want to see another fascist rise in Europe, because obviously we know what happened the last time, just a small world war. But we don't want to repeat, and I think that's a lot of jeopardy. Like, Europe's in turmoil at the moment, and I hate to say it because Europe's great. There's a lot of culture here. You know, everyone's very friendly and welcoming until you get down in the nitty gritty and you see people in London and in France throwing Molotovs and blocking off roads and being extremely offensive. And it's coming into sports, and it's coming into music, and it's coming into politics and religion, and it's causing mayhem. But we'll move on
uh,
to the next topic, so we don't want to stick on it too much. And if you guys want to leave any feedback on what we have made, any comments we've made, please do let us know in the comments, and we'll take them up in our future episode. But our next topic,
uh,
which we've already mentioned, oh, actually, no, hold on, we've missed something.
yeah. I would like to kind of clarify what I said just now about the whole beating the shit out of you.
Yeah.
So that came off a little jerky-ish. So what I mean by that is,
Hmm.
all right. So you're blocking the way. I can't get to work, and I
Yep.
have to go to work. You're purposely taking my right away. You can't just
Yep.
do that. I mean, so say you're fighting for because I'm driving a big old diesel truck. Say I'm driving the biggest diesel truck you ever seen, and you're blocking
Yep.
my way to work. Let me just put it this way. So I am now learning more and more about mechanical stuff, and recently I learned that the whole pollution ordeal with gas. So diesel is a really healthy type fuel to use.
Still not very clean,
It's
but it's better than
Um,
petrol
it's
engines.
better. So if you go back, so your E85, apparently this is supposed to be some really good fuel for you to use. Now, if you go and look into your air and fuel ratio, I can actually pull it up right here. I believe is I think I took a picture of it when I was learning it,
Hmm.
but it was like 9-to-1 for your E85 or something like
I
that.
don't know what that means in sense of
So
what we do here, but
so you got 9 parts of air to 1 part of fuel.
okay, I get you. That makes me sound like I'm an
So
idiot, but just different. We do it
in
different
in
here.
relevancy, so diesel, so your normal gasoline is 14 to 7. That's your perfect.
Hmm.
And that whole perfectness, and that really means is just the perfect combustion rate. That's
All
pretty
right.
much what that is.
Okay.
But then your E85, you're using more fuel. And
Hmm.
apparently that's supposed to be a good fuel to use because it was better for the environment. But then if you bring into like your Hummers, so back when Obama was president, Hummers were
Great
actually
guy.
basically outlawed type thing. You can't manufacture them anymore.
Uh huh.
So if you really go back and think about it, that truck may have been huge. It may have been a gas guzzler, but it was still a better car for the environment than these 5.4 liter pickup trucks with E85 gas, or these
At the end of the
SUVs
day,
using E85 gas.
America is one of the highest polluters in the world, without a
Oh,
doubt.
definitely. I mean, especially when you get all right. So I don't want to point fingers, but everybody loves trucks. No matter what, you love trucks. I'm
Right?
not
Okay.
sure over there in Europe. I think you got more like minivans and stuff because y'all love that soccer mom type.
Kind of.
But I mean, if you come over here, you'll be fancied. I'm gonna use your word for me. You're gonna be fancied by how amazing and how much money we waste on pickup trucks and
Yeah,
SUVs.
I've
Like we
seen that
just
on some
love them.
videos. However, we're gonna run our time. We're trying to
Yeah,
keep
we
it
do
10
need to
minutes, but I do want to make one quick point because I did miss Asia as a whole continent. Obviously, there's a lot of protests there, especially in Middle East. Obviously, there's conflict there. In India, you've got conflicts between Pakistan and India. Really hot tensions there, which we'll look into more in future episodes. We'll specify Middle East or Far East. And one thing I do want to talk about recently has been obviously in Hong Kong, which has been all over the news, no matter where you're from, because of intervention between China and Hong Kong and how the government works and how the freedom of movement between people and how controlling the government is over there compared to elsewhere. And recently, which I saw a video, it was very graphic of the shooting of a protester. I think it was yesterday or the day before that, and it was horrible. But it just shows that you have to protest in the right way. And these guys, and it's tactical protests. These guys are really going for it. They have to go all out. They can't do it peacefully anymore because the government just won't listen. And it's different in Western civilization compared to Eastern civilization. And that's not just me being, stereotypical. It's just how it is. You don't have us going to civil wars and things like that. It's much more democratic here than it is in countries like Hong Kong. And me personally, I wish these democratic protesters all the best in getting what they need for their country, for their lives, for their families, and for the future. But on to the next topic, we'll divert, and this is something you want to talk about: is guns.
Definitely.
So,
So let me start off with this one. So kind of give me a rundown on how your restrictions are and your bans are on guns over there. I
so
understand you don't have as much gun violence, but give me a rundown on your
yeah. So
restrictions.
recently in the UK as a whole, we have seen an increase in violence with knives and some gun violence. In Scotland, in particular, gun violence is at an all-time well. It is very, very, very small amount of people own firearms. That was because we had the Dunblane shooting at a primary school where a man with a handgun came in and killed an entire class of people, and obviously that was the worst tragedy that's ever happened, the worst shooting that's ever happened in the UK. Um, so we banned firearms, but you had to go through some very strict licensing to own hunting rifles. So farmers, they have more leeway because they're using it for the correct purposes of hunting and protecting land for agriculture. Whereas your general Joe Blogs can't just go around carrying a firearm like they do in America. It's very, you can't, there is no concealed carry, or I'm pretty sure there isn't here anymore anyway. I've not seen one person carrying a gun. Let's just say that anyway. Or not that I know of. It's very, very different here, very tense. Same with Australia, same with Norway after they had their shooting. Guns are very, very limited here, whereas knife crime is still quite a prevalent issue.
Okay. So excuse me a bit.
No problem,
But
man.
so the whole thing about any old Joe Blow carrying a gun around here. So I
Just
just
call him
want to
Joe
kind of
Blow.
emphasize on it.
Joe's not doing blow, man.
No, okay. Well, Mr. Jinky over here. So North Carolina. North Carolina is an open carry state, which means you can carry your pistol on your hip and people can see it.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina, you have to have a concealed weapons permit. It has to be concealed at all times.
Yeah.
So you have to go through these classes to be able to even carry these guns. But as far as shotguns, in South Carolina, I can walk up to Walmart in Gaffney, South Carolina, and say, I want this 12 gauge right here and 4 boxes of ammo. All I got to do is go through my background check and
Now,
hand them the money.
see that to for a European, for someone from the UK, from Scotland, who obviously I wasn't alive at the time of when this tragedy took place, right? But someone in Europe, that is bonkers. That just is a symbol for violence. Imagine me going around schools or, you know, walking through shopping centers carrying a Kalashnikov or an M4 or a handgun, just the smallest firearm. It's you're asking for trouble, and that's why I see America as going off the rails. Obviously, your political parties are very supported by the NRA and other gun organizations, and guns are, I say guns, ancient muskets are in your constitution. Your ancient constitution that's over 200 years old, 300
Okay,
years
so
old.
I'm gonna let me talk about that. The Second Amendment.
Hmm.
So that really protects your forming of a militia.
Yes.
Now, don't get me wrong, the government has freaking A-10 warthogs or whatever they're called. You got your drones, they got a drone that can just be controlled by some guy in a computer room in his basement or some shit, and that can take out a whole city with one little sweep. So the whole thing about forming a militia, unless you have access to every bit of the same stuff as the United States military does, there's no way you're going to be stupid enough to form that militia.
So, see, at the time, this is before, I'm going to assume, because obviously America at this time was, the Wild West, still had Native Americans versus, white settlers. There was no police force. Okay, that's why you had the right to form a militia to protect your town from
What?
cowboys and from Native Americans. It's very, John Wayne style movie, Hollywood, right? Do you think now, we're in the future where technology's come a long way and you'd expect civilization to have come a long way? You'd think peace and, harmony between people would have come around. But when you have multi-billion-dollar corporations for weapons sponsoring political parties, you know that something's not right. How is that a solution for keeping schools safe? Because America, when I thought of America, okay, I didn't want to say it, but when I think of America, I think guns. And when I think guns, I think, people going into public places and killing innocent people. And I don't know how you could see that as being something that is in your constitution that is over 300 years old. That is something that was, at the time there was still a threat of British reinvasion. There was still a threat of revolt from Native Americans. That's why you have your right to bear arms and your right to form a militia. But when you have the most powerful military in the world with the most military spending after the next 26 countries combined, and you have, you know, a well-established police force in every single state, why would you need
All right,
guns?
so let me put this. So yes, the Constitution was written in 1787. That is back then, 17, whatever it was when the Declaration of Independence was. 16 to 1700s when America was pretty much formed. But now, yes, the police force is very organized and everything now. But the average police response time is basically the same as a fire department. You want to be there in less than 5 minutes, you want to be there in 30 seconds. But the average response time for a fire department is 7 minutes. The average response for a police force, I think it was 8.5 minutes. Now, in 8.5 minutes, some guy could be shooting up a Walmart in North Carolina.
But why is that
Eight and a
happening?
half minutes.
Why is that
What?
happening? Why is that happening? Because he has access to guns.
Okay, now, but watch this. That guy may pull the gun out to start shooting people. Now, say nobody in North Carolina has a weapon. That guy does, and it's going to take 8.5 minutes for those cops to be at Walmart at that guy gunpoint. In 8.5 minutes, that man could kill everybody in that Walmart. When open carry state, there is guaranteed to be over 100 people in a Walmart store daily.
Right,
So you
okay.
got, so just say a guy comes in there with a gun, ready to go, all hell blazing, about to shoot up everybody he can. But then you got Mr. Davis over here in the left hand corner of the Walmart in the deli section looking at Bonnie for his sandwiches. He sees it, and here he comes with his freaking 45, got his gun out, pointing at the guy. The guy points the gun at him, boom. The guy that was getting ready to shoot up the store,
Now,
dead.
hold your horses
But,
there.
but hold on, hold
Okay,
on.
right, go
Let
for
me,
it, go for
let me
it, go
finish
for it,
this
go
one.
for it, go for it.
So Now he's got the gun. He just killed the possible shooter. But in the police's eyes, that man has his gun, and a guy laying here on the ground is dead. So that's going to look bad on his part. He's going to get arrested. There's no doubt about it. He's going to get arrested and possibly incarcerated for manslaughter. But that man that was getting ready to shoot up the Walmart was killed, and hundreds to 50 people just got their lives saved by a man that had a weapon.
Okay, right. Let me come back at you. Just to be devil advocate before we change topic real quick. So you talk about police response times, and you talk about everyone carrying a firearm. Now, let's say in a hypothetical sense, America becomes like Australia, where guns are very much restricted, and the same with the UK and other European countries. Okay. Now, in the UK, if someone has a firearm, okay, the police are here within 3 minutes. Okay. I'd I'd average that, okay, because it's such a serious crime. But when you normalize weapons, okay, when you say when if I was to come over here as a tourist and I say, right, there's a guy holding a 45 in the middle of the street, send an officer, they'd be like, right, okay, well, hold on a minute, he's got the right to bear arms. Okay, it's become normalized, and you think that helps the police when they hear someone's got a gun, they think that that's fine. Well, the only people who should be carrying firearms are special divisions of the police or the police force in general, or they should be using non-lethal like tasers, which obviously they're starting to reintroduce. Teachers, for example, shouldn't have to carry firearms. Students should not have to carry firearms to school because they feel threatened when they can't walk through the front door without feeling like they're going to be shot. Okay, America should not normalize weapons. You say that if this guy comes into Walmart who has the access to these weapons because they've done a background check, who gives a fuck about a background check? This guy could be off his fucking rocker, sociopath, okay? I couldn't give a shit. Okay, I don't want him carrying a gun. I don't want my neighbor carrying a gun. I don't want to be carrying a gun. Okay, now that may be written in your constitution over 300 years ago, but you can tell me right now to my face that you feel safe walking down the street when you know that every second or every person that passes you is carrying a gun, could turn around at any second and can shoot you. This isn't the Wild West, okay? This is civilized America, the capital of the free world. You know, you've got the most powerful military, the most you've got everything, right? The American dream. But when you can't feel safe in Chicago and Illinois, you can't feel safe in California, you can't feel safe in any state because the next guy walking past you, you might bump into him and he might have the most severe anger issues, or you might bump into some homeless guy in the street who's found the firearm, okay? Because they're so easy to access and will just shoot you right there and then.
All right. I understand it. That's pretty
Yeah, that's
valid.
that's a
I ain't
European
gonna lie.
and American contrast. That's why we do this shit.
So
Right,
so check this out. Now
real
let's carry
quick,
this on. All
real
right.
quick.
So Mr. Davis doesn't have a gun, but here comes Johnny that does have a gun. Some magical way, hell, he got a gun with guns banned. What's he gonna do? Throw a jug of milk at him and say, "Halt, there, terrorist!"
But
Throw a gallon of milk at him and smack him in the face
do you
with a piece
think
of
the
bologna.
police then the police aren't going to be like, right, okay, we'll be there in 8 minutes, okay? If you know, right,
They're
if
gonna get there as quick as they can.
exactly,
But
right?
the average response time, just because you got added to the fact you got traffic, unless that police station is built into Walmart, Mr. Johnny's gonna be chucking water jugs and freaking milk jugs and slapping dude in the face with bologna while he's getting shot in the gut. I
Well,
mean, there's nothing that you can do without.
if it
So
wasn't if
this is
it
gonna
wasn't
make me sound kind of
normalized,
weird.
the police will be there in less than 8.5 minutes because it's such a high priority crime. They'll have special SWAT teams there. They'll have helicopters. They'll have the fucking military, National Guard. I don't give a shit who they're calling. The FBI, fucking Ghostbusters. Okay, they'll be there in less than 8 minutes. Okay, if they hear someone's got a gun. Whereas
All
if
right,
I'm
let's put
there,
this in.
go for it, real quick,
All
before
right.
we go into the
So in
next topic.
Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I used to live, say say there was gonna be a shooting at Walmart. Say the guy walked in there with a gun. Excuse me. Say the guy walks into Walmart with a gun ready to shoot everybody up in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The nearest police station is by I-85, halfway across the entire county from Hillcrest. Okay. So to drive from the Walmart in Hillcrest to that police station is 30 minutes. But there is heavy police presence in the Hillcrest. Okay. But get this. That police presence is over by number 9 and 29 toward in Westgate. So the average response time to even drive from Walmart to Westgate is about 15 to 20 minutes. You got
Legally drive.
so many red lights. You got so many vehicles in the way. That response time to Walmart, you might have one cop that was right there in the vicinity, but that one cop, by policy, he cannot go storming into that Walmart or he will lose his job and he has to face the risk of losing his life. But Mr. Johnny has his concealed weapon on him, stops crime then and there. There's so many effects into this that
Yeah,
there's pros and cons. And
100%.
honestly, I think it's a 50-50 thing.
Yep,
The cons of it, everybody's got a fucking gun. The pros,
exactly.
the good people can save other good people's lives.
hmm
So it kind of equals itself out. And in the same case, I think that there should be restrictions. It should be harder to get a gun, but it shouldn't be to the extent to where nobody can get a gun.
I
There
can
should
see it.
still
I can see where you're
be
coming from.
civilians that can carry their guns. I believe that concealed weapon, you should be able to do that. I believe open carry would be 100% better of a thing just for the fact that when you're near a cop, that cop knows for a fact you have a weapon on you. So he's ready if anything were to go off.
Okay.
I believe open carry should be fully legalized and throughout every country so everybody knows that guy's got a gun. If I hear something that could possibly pop off, I'm getting the fuck out. I mean,
All right. Right, we've gone over time, but we could
yeah,
probably come back to another podcast specifically on this topic because it clearly is
yeah. Let's.
something very serious. But our next topic, and we're down to our last two. First one is going to be on women's rights, which
Oh
I
fuck.
know you feel quite strongly about, and I'm kind of interested because we've not really had, I didn't really get your side to it when we were in the call earlier because I wanted to see what you'd say just now, and for the viewers fresh in their minds and in mine, what you have to say.
Okay. I believe the protest for women's equality is the stupidest thing in all possible human existence.
Now explain very carefully your reasons for
Okay.
this. Now give me it like, kind of brief,
What
but
was it? Was it
cover
World
the main
War One
points.
or World War II when it first came up for women equality?
So
And it was
women's
passed.
women's equality, right? Women and men in the UK in particular, right? Before in the 1900s, equal rights weren't a thing. It was only the upper classes. Now certain laws were passed that opened up the electorate even more for lower class men, no women, to get the vote. And the suffragette and the suffragist movement is very famous across the world. These women were, not afraid to protest their cause, to have an equal right and equal say because they are human beings too, and they live in the same society as we do, and they do the same jobs and things like that. They got the right to vote in 1918, and I think it was in the 1920s. I can't remember the specific date. It's going to bother me. It's either 1921 or 25, something like that. It was under. It was 21 and under, no, 21 and over. Sorry, that everyone got the vote. It was equal between men and women, but there's still discrimination within the workplace, in colleges, universities, schools, and in male-dominated jobs. Right, go ahead and cover what you're saying.
Okay, so as far as that, so here in America, you got women that want to do everything man can, which they have the right to do that. They can.
100%.
And that was passed. I think was it now you might know this better than me because I honestly didn't follow enough because I think it's stupid. But not the fact that it was actually passed. I believe that was completely awesome. I believe women
hmm
should be able to do what men can, regardless of if they're man, woman, transgender, whatever.
hmm
Don't even get me started on
Oh
trans
yeah, we'll
things.
get that on a different topic as well. We'll be talking about military and things like that in the future.
But
That's gonna be something.
so I think it was either World War One or World War Two. It was one of the two. And women started to really try to vocalize what they wanted and how they wanted to do it. But now you bring it up now at the fact that you are completely equal to a man, no
Are
matter
they
what.
though? Are they? To be
Yes,
devil's
yes,
advocate,
they are.
right?
I mean, you're 2019. There's no reason for you not to be. And if you really want to think about it, the only time you're going to really see men really discriminating is going to be down low south to where they still want it to be in the Wild West, where the woman takes care of the household and the man goes to work. And
You
even
could call
back in
them
the
evangelicals, stuff
1900s,
like that, Bible bashers.
I don't know.
Right. Let me.
But you bring it
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Actually, I'll let you speak. This
okay.
one.
So when you really bring it up now, it just makes no sense, and especially like these protests for it. So these women want so many different rights, but if once we give the women the complete rights, the more they want, they're going to have more than men. And then if you got to think about it, right now, all the women are doing is really just kicking the men in the guts, making them look like shit, making them feel like shit, and then you're just slinging them in the mud and saying, "There you go, you deserve this." But we haven't done anything. We haven't done
Right.
anything to women really since back in the early
Uh,
1900s when we didn't really give them too much leeway.
right. Let me be the devil's advocate real quick, just to counter your point, make it cover a lot of bases here. So, how many female presidents have there been?
Zero.
And there has been two female prime ministers here in the UK. Right? There's
Okay.
women in power across the planet, but there has been very, very few. Okay. Um,
But there's nothing stopping women from being it.
well,
It's
there
just
is massive hurdles that they have to come over because when you think about it, if there has been no female presidents, okay, how many hurdles are they going to have to come over to be on the same pedestal as a man? Okay, if they've never been in that position before, okay, how are they going to get judged on that position? All right. Now, women in academics, okay, women and men, okay. Some of them, some people I've met are on another level. Their intelligence is beyond crazy, okay. But I heard some scary facts and statistics today that only 17% of, I think it's female um, academics are in higher managerial positions in universities and colleges across Scotland. Okay, and I believe it's just specifically Scotland, and 55% of academic females, are in lower roles. Okay, they're not in higher managerial positions because they face this, kind of barrier. All right, there's lots of discrimination, I guess, just because women get pregnant or just because women have been seen in the past as fragile and unstable, especially during the early 1900s. And this kind of stereotypes carried through, especially in the older generations, like the boomers, okay, and you know your people's grandparents, great grandparents, things like that. Women now see this opportunity of empowerment. They can come through and they can really speak up because they see that women are becoming more powerful because they can be, because they are on the same pedestal. They are no different to men. And I think that's becoming a lot of an issue, especially in the United States, especially in your southern states. Like you said yourself, where, it's still kind of men are the breadwinners and women look after the house. But that's from a European perspective. That's why it's across the pond. I'll roll it back to you real quick. Sorry, I've kind of taken up a little bit of your time there, and then we'll
oh,
jump
you're
on to our
fine,
next
man.
topic, right?
So as far as that, so I'm going to give women a big shout out. So if you really, 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 really want to get to without women, there wouldn't really be any more population. I mean, it'd just become dead because
No shit.
and men at the same time. So there's two parts in the creating population. You got a man and you got a woman. They have to have sexual relations. They have to have sexual relations in order to repopulate. So the women carry the biggest responsibility on the planet Earth. I don't care if you're president. I don't care if you're a general in the military. Women have the biggest responsibility in the entire world. So as
Very
far as
true.
jumping those hurdles, there's no reason for a woman to limit herself to where she can't believe that she can jump them hurdles. Because in my perspective, there's zero hurdles for her to jump over. Just for the fact
Ye-
that I understand what you're saying, there is, but in my perspective, a woman shouldn't go into a mindset that, all right, so I got to jump over this, I got to jump over that, I got to go through that. They so it's overthinking. So it's almost like me going hunting and saying, what if I can't pull off this shot? What if I pull my bow back and my string breaks? What if I go to shoot and my arrow goes straight into the dirt? It's overthinking it. A woman can be president. There's nothing stopping her from
of
being
course.
president. She all it really depends on what she says, what intrigues the actual civilization, what is going to give them a reason to vote her in to be president. There is so much. So right now, I noticed that what was her name? It's the older lady. that's running for president. She's a Democrat, but her biggest thing was women's equality.
It's still an issue in America in
That
particular.
well, it is, but as soon as a woman says that, all men's eyes go not voting for her because there's not much more you can give her.
So
There's absolutely
what does
nothing.
that say about your electorate then? Because you've
Oh,
got a massive female, and there's still a lot of males who would be very empowered. It's not it's tactical voting because they know they don't have to appeal to these very I'd say underdeveloped mindsets between these tunnel vision men and some women. I will say that there is some women who still believe that they've been brainwashed in that kind of sense that they have to do this housework. But there is a huge demographic, huge electorate of young women and middle-aged women, young men who have seen this throughout their academic careers, early academic through high school, college, and uni. They see how passionate these women can be, and it inspires a lot of the generation, especially Michelle Obama. I got my mum her book as a present, and she loves it because it's so motivational for women to get off this, to get out of these
yeah.
chains that have been set by hundreds of years of oppression and are now really starting to speak up. But okay, we'll change the topic really quickly just so we can finish on another controversial note that we can talk about in a future podcast. And our last topic for tonight is going to be Black Lives Matter movement. Okay, I'll let you start off since it's an American movement, and I'll jump in as devil advocate like I have been throughout this whole time, and I'll let you take the reins.
Okay. So Black Lives Matter. I'm gonna start off by saying, in no way, shape, or form am I racist. Now, if you're black,
That's always a
if you're
fantastic
Asian,
start, by the way. I just want to say, just want to clarify, I'm not a racist.
the whole Black Lives Matter movement, yes, the black community is targeted, and it's been targeted since the Civil War, since slavery. It's just an out there thing. It's always happened. It's always gonna happen. White people are always gonna be pointed at by the Asians. You're
Should it
always
be
gonna
like
be
that though? Why is it like
no,
that?
it shouldn't be. There should be no reason for it.
So, from your
But
perspective, why is it like that? Just as a
I,
question before you jump into it.
it's I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you why it's like it. All I know is from American standpoint is how you're raised. So if you're raised in a family or a home that was so supportive, all right, so say the Confederate States. Say your family has a long line of Confederate Army or just a long line of Southern heritage. And they're all in the just say it's this particular one that just hates black people for some reason, or just thinks that slavery should still be a thing. Now, don't get me wrong, slavery is the stupidest and most cruel thing you can possibly do to a human being. There's no reason for it. Now, if there's any animal cruelty people out there that are going to contradict that and saying it's the same for animals, yes and no. But we ain't on that topic right now. So you bring it into that. Yes, they're targeted. No, it's not going to change because it's always going to be there. No matter what, it's going to be there. And it's the same for white people. So you should have white lives matter too, because at the same time, you
Oh,
got the Black Lives Matter community.
man, I don't know. Like, obviously,
This
everyone
one,
is equal, and I get where you're coming
yeah,
from.
everybody's completely equal.
Every
And
man
you're
is
gonna hear
equal.
this. You're gonna hear the most cliche thing come out of my mouth right now. Most cliche thing that anybody says that doesn't give a shit about the whole political standpoint is we all bleed red.
Very true.
Technically, we all bleed blue or violet until we touch oxygen. But black people are going to be targeted and white people are going to be targeted by the black community. It's going to be an ongoing fist fight no matter what, just for the fact that this white guy called this black guy an N-word and this black guy called this white guy the C word. It's going to go back and forth for ages. I
Hmm.
mean, the only and this is going to sound like the most gruesome thing ever, and I got it from a movie. Okay.
Oh,
So
here we go. This is gonna go down. Awesome. Copyright
so
claim.
the only way to stop it is to kill everybody and start with two.
So that's the purge.
Yeah, pretty much. I
All
mean, it's the
right.
stupidest thing. And no, I don't believe that should happen. Just so we can clarify that, that should not happen. Nobody should die for no reason. But when not the but for that, sorry. But the whole Black Lives community, so the protest of the Black Lives community is they went too overboard. They went too overboard with their whole protest and everything. And just from the standpoint, like I said, it's not going to change. There's nothing that's going to change. All we can do is shake hands. So this black guy and me and him's going to walk up to and say, "Me and you're cool, right? We're going to shake hands and call it a good day." I may not never ever see that black guy again, but I guarantee you, in the back of his mind, he'll always remember me for saying we're cool, and I always remember in the back of my mind for him saying that we're cool.
Right.
There's no, and you can't stop. So even in Mississippi, Mississippi still has the greatest amount of racism. You swear they're still stuck back in the freaking 1800s. You swear to it. I mean, it's just, and don't get me started on the KKK stuff
We'll do
because
that. We'll talk
originally
about
the
that. We've
KKK,
got plenty of time in the future episodes.
right, but this still runs into the same thing because during the Black Lives Matter community, the KKK came back out. But the original KKK was formed to protect women and children. The same as you got biker clubs out here. Oh, biker clubs are so scary. You got biker clubs out here that were formed to protect women and children. The KKK originally was formed to protect women and children, but through generations, it got to where we're going to burn crosses in these black people's yard. We're going to completely destroy a black community's lifestyle. We're going to completely demolish how they live. We're just going to completely try to destroy them and socially and emotionally and physically. We're going to
I
try to
get.
do it as much as
All
we
right.
can. So it, yeah. All right, I'll let you take over now. 'Cause I'm getting a little too carried away.
No, no problem. Right. Okay. We'll start off with the. So you say that they've gone too far. So the Black Lives community. I've watched several documentaries from a UK perspective. The BBC have done a few, and I've seen on YouTube and Facebook the retaliation in certain states. So you had I believe it's Charlottesville. There was huge, widespread protest from the black community and a large black community there because black teenagers in particular were targeted. And I believe one was shot, and I apologize for forgetting the name. It's just off the top of my head there, but I know that there was massive protests there, and they have absolutely every single right to protest that was the wrong. It was horrific, and obviously the guy was. In these states, the police are so heavily protected, and they're typically white police officers. It's such a difficult issue. Now, the next thing I want to really quickly change over to was why is it happening? Now, America's education system isn't particularly, you know, in comparison to certain European countries and uh, Asian countries, their education is quite poor in comparison. America needs to stop spending as much money on military and start focusing on its education. That's how you target these issues. If you start from the root at the young children of the next generation and the next generation, you can really crack down if you educate these people on how equal and how just because of the pigmentation of their skin, just because it better suits the sun, okay, doesn't show any
All right, so
difference.
I'm gonna kind of do what you were doing, devil's advocate, and kind of counter that. So for me, for me per se, when I was in school, I would listen to my parents before I would my teacher. So, say your parents are heavily racist, they grew up in a racist home, and they don't want anything changed, and they still don't like black people. That child's still going to not like black people because they were raised in that home. No matter what you teach them in school or outside of home, they're always going to stay at home.
Can you though? Because you've got to criticize fiction with fact. Just because your parents say something, but if your teacher can prove to you through fact, through literal pieces of paper with written down documentation, talking about Martin Luther King, talking about any other, important figureheads, Malcolm X, okay, Rosa Parks, these black right activists who are no different from anyone, Hispanic, white, black, Asian, right? They're all human underneath. The color of their
Yeah,
skin
but
doesn't
still, I
define
mean, you
them.
got to think about it. We learn about that daily in school. Even now, I mean, kids that are just now getting into school and they're starting to understand stuff. Martin Luther King Jr. Day comes about, and they ask, "What's so special about it?" And then, like, and it's typically asked at school, and then at the same time, you're learning about it in
Because you're
school.
getting educated from it. And this is where you have to
But
counter it, and
it's
you need to
still
realize
going on with younger generation.
now this will be covered a lot more in depth within our future, coming up, this will be a hot topic because it still is very prevalent, especially in the United States, where racism is still on the lips of many, and it's still, you know, it's on both sides, both communities, every community, and we focus specifically on black people. People that think about white people and Hispanics, Asians, the communities there, they all target each other because this culture has become so developed, and it must change. But we can cover that in a future episode. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed our hot topics, quick fire. Well, tried to be quick fire. We got carried away on some, but our quick fire topics. And we will catch you guys in the next episode of Across the Pond. Thank you for
Y'all
listening,
have a good one.
and we'll see you next time.